The downside of using social media groups or YouTube University as your sole means of training for real estate investing is that you can get some really bad advice. In fact, you can see some of the worst advice in some of these groups and some of these YouTube videos. I've seen a bunch of it, and we're going to talk about the top 5 biggest lies and bad advice that you get on social media today on the Sub 2 Deal Show. In fact, if you follow some of this advice, you can lose thousands of dollars and maybe even your real estate business. So stick around. We're going to talk about that today on the Sub 2 Deal Show. Hey, deed grabbers, welcome to this episode of the Sub 2 Deal Show, where we talk about all things subject to and creative finance. Occasionally, we'll talk about some different things, but it's all real estate investing related, and it's all to help you with your real estate business. Guys, today we are talking about bad advice on social media and YouTube for real estate investing. And there's a ton of it. In fact, I asked the question recently, what's the worst advice you've ever had on real estate? And man, there were dozens and dozens of answers, a whole bunch of them. But we took these things and the other stuff that I see and got these down to probably what I think at least are the top 5 worst pieces of advice that you can get on real estate investing. And literally, following some of this stuff can cost you a bunch of money, but worse, it can cost you your business. And we'll talk about each one of these and elaborate just a little bit. So number 5 on the list is you need a real estate license to invest in real estate. You need to be an agent. And I'll tell you, I can't imagine why anyone would want to get a real estate license. I've been investing. I bought my first investment property in 1999. Gosh, that means I've been doing this in June. It'll be 26 years, and I've never had a real estate license. Now, I have worked with a lot of people that do have licenses, and they're important to get you things that you need. Access to the MLS when you're new, CMAs, comps, and things that you need like that. But as far as having a license for yourself, there are a lot of reasons, in my opinion, you shouldn't have a license. And gosh, that's a whole list in and of itself. But just off the top of my head here, number 1, all the fees that you have to pay. It's ongoing fees, continuing education, things that you have to show up to continue to learn all the new rules in real estate. Number 2 is that the education they give you isn't that good. In fact, I'm trying to think of an agent that I've met in my 25 years of investing that knew more about real estate than I do. And I can't think of one. I can generally answer most of the things they can. When you get to some of the real techie things about real estate, I may not be able to answer that, but as far as practical hands-on stuff, what you can do and you can't do and things like that, they just don't have a clue. They're rushed through a few weeks of training and they're thrown out there with professional stamped on them. And that leads me to another reason. Once you have that license, you're considered in the eyes of most people as an expert. And for that reason, you're held to some other completely different standard than what you can do. In fact, it's pretty common for me to have a discussion with a real estate agent about some of my deals. And when I talk about buying a house and selling a house and making $70,000 or sometimes even $100,000 in profit, when I don't rehab that property, when I just flip it, they say, we could never do deals like that because I have a license. And that means if I meet with a seller and they offer to sell me a property for way below market value, I have a fiduciary responsibility to that seller to inform them of the real value and that I can't buy it for that price. Now, so that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. If I've got a person in front of me who offers to sell me a car worth $50,000 for $10,000, why wouldn't I buy it for 10? I mean, assuming that this person isn't on drugs or alcohol, or that they're limited in some means. Why in the world could I not make that transaction happen? Why do I have to say, oh no, that's way under market value, I have to pay at least $40,000? I can get a $10,000 break, but that's about the best I can do. Agents tell me that all the time. Then there's the fact that if you're licensed and you're trying to invest, your broker may have a problem with what you do. I talk to countless agents that tell me when it comes to investing that if they're going to do anything, they have to run it by their broker, and their broker says yes or no. I can't imagine somebody else having that kind of control over my income and my wealth building. And then the last thing that I can think of off the top of my head, why I would not want to be licensed to be an investor, is that real estate agents as a group are like piranhas, man. They eat their own. And again, countless cases of people that are agents that are trying to invest getting turned in by other agents for little things like not putting their license number and stating the fact that they're a licensed agent on their bandit signs or any marketing they do as an investor. And technically they may be supposed to do that, but some agents act like that their job is to police other agents. I'll tell you, we had a run-in with some agents here when we moved to Northwest Arkansas. These guys up here are just nuts. They don't like investors. They don't want them in the marketplace. I don't really know why. We had one group of them that told me that they couldn't work with me on flipping a property if I had taken title to it, if I had prepared the deed. Why? Is there a law that says I can't prepare a deed? I mean, I know there's not, but I was trying to get them to just really tell me what I knew, and that was just that they did not want to work with us. No reason, and you don't have to have a reason. I regularly don't work with people that I don't care for, and that's okay. You don't have to, but I don't mind telling somebody, I just don't want to work with you. Don't try to hide behind what's legal or not legal if that's not true. So do you have to have a license to be an agent? I would say no, you don't. And in fact, it's probably detrimental to you being a good investor if you have that license. I think it's more of a liability than an actual benefit. I can get somebody to get me MLS access. I can get somebody to get me comps if I need it. I can get somebody to show me a house if I need them to. I certainly don't need all the headaches that come with licensing to make that happen. Hey, listen, if you're listening to us on Apple or Google Podcast and you'd like to see our smiling faces, go over to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that at sub2tv.com. That's sub2tv, S-U-B, the number 2, TV.com. Go check that out. And listen, check out my new book. We just released a book about 3 weeks ago on the 12 house blueprint. Now, you guys have heard me for years talk about my model for financial freedom, which is buying property subject to or with seller financing, and then selling with seller financing. It gives you all the benefits of cash flow without the tenant management maintenance headaches. And you can go to 12houseblueprintbook.com and pick that up. We'll even ship it for you for free. Go over, pick that book up. It's 177 pages of good stuff. So you guys go check it out. Reason number 4, or bad advice number 4, wait to invest until prices or interest rates come down. I'll tell you, if you wait, I think you're going to be disappointed. Interest rates may come down. Prices may come down. Maybe not. If you invest the way we do and the way we teach to, we get houses at discounts. And when we have financing attached to those houses, it's always subject to. Now, what does that mean? Well, we take over someone else's 2.5% interest rate or 3% interest rate. We don't go out and get bank financing. And I don't advise for anybody to do that. There are millions of loans out there right now under 3%. And some of those people get into trouble. They go into foreclosure, they get divorces, they lose their jobs, they get transferred, they get behind on their taxes, or their house needs repairs and they can't afford them. It happens all the time. And we talk to these sellers and we buy their houses. I think there's a saying, you don't wait to buy real estate, you buy real estate and wait. And I think that's very valid. So I think any advice telling people to wait until prices come down or to wait until interest rates come down, I just think that's bad advice. It can cost you a lot of money. Bad advice number 3 on the internet and social media: deals with no equity or no cash flow can still be good deals. I'm sorry, I'm just not buying it. Will I buy a no equity deal, taking over payments? You bet. I'll pay $300,000 for a $300,000 house if there is good, strong cash flow and that property's in good shape. I'll do that all day because I know how to make money with that house. Now, but here's what I know. If I buy a $300,000 house for $290,000 or $300,000, that's got a 2.5% interest rate loan on it, and let's just say my payment's $1,200 a month, but that house will rent for $2,000 a month. That's good cash flow. I can sell that house with seller financing for $319,000, get $19,000 down, and wrap the note $300 on my end, $300 on theirs, and make money on the spread. Now, what if property values fall? What if next year that house is only worth $250,000 and I owe $300,000? Isn't that a big problem? What if my buyer gives me the house back and says, hey, this house went down in value, I'm leaving? I can't, in good conscience, sell that house for what I owe on it. What am I going to do? Well, I'll rent it. That's a distant plan B for me. But if it rented for $2,000 when it was worth $300,000, okay, let's just say rent rates drop a little and now it'll only rent for $17,000. Remember, my payment was $12,000. I'm still getting $500 a month. And even after maintenance and repairs and whatever, there is some cash flow. The house is still paying for itself. To me, that's a safe bet. But as far as buying a deal with no equity and no cash flow, where's the deal? I've got to have something. And the response most of these people give you is, oh, well, this is an appreciation play. I'm going to tell you something. Appreciation isn't guaranteed, and I want to make some money now. Okay, that may be equity. It may be cash flow. I don't care. But I'm going to be making some money on this deal or I'm not interested. Appreciation isn't guaranteed. We don't like that. So appreciation is just gravy later. It's just icing on the cake. So we want equity and or cash flow, and we want to make money. I'll tell you another problem with these deals is, let's just say it won't cash flow as a long-term rental. The only way this property will cash flow is a short-term rental or some kind of pad split thing, which is popular now. That's dangerous because if it won't cash flow as a long-term rental, the only way you can get it to make money is with some kind of short-term rental. What happens when your city says no more Airbnbs? What happens when your city doesn't allow more than 2 people that are unrelated living in the same house? And you think that can't happen? It happens every day. I know of at least 2 people personally that this has happened to with their properties, 2 different cities and 2 different things. They'll actually, it was the first time I'd heard of it. I think it was in St. Louis or Kansas City, where the city council passed an ordinance that you couldn't have multiple people that were unrelated living in the same house. Basically, what they were trying to do is do away with this pad split thing. They don't want all these group homes popping up everywhere because homeowners that live on the street and in the neighborhood don't like that. The chances are the house isn't getting taken care of. You got multiple tenants living in one property. And I'm not saying it's always that way, but the chances do increase. Most homeowners don't even like a rental property on their street. They don't want renters. They want homeowners living there who typically take better care of their properties, and it protects property value in the whole neighborhood. Man, you get some of these pad splits on the same street, there's going to be a problem. And one of the cities that we do business in, right after we moved here, passed an ordinance. They limited the total number of Airbnbs that could operate in that city. So, once they had their number filled, and I can't remember how many it is, I believe it was 100. Once there were 100 registered Airbnbs there, you had to go on a waiting list, and somebody had to get out of the program for somebody in the list to move up. So a lot of cities don't like these things. Homeowners don't like them. Hotel lobbyists don't like them. There's a lot of reasons not to. And I think Airbnb is pretty saturated right now, in fact. But I've been saying this for a long time. Don't base your wealth building and your cash flow on short-term rentals. It's just not a good idea. So number 2 on the bad advice list, real estate always goes up in value. Now, this stuff, it's really funny, the cycles in real estate. The last real major devaluation that we had was in 2007, 2008. Man, that was 17 years ago now. And typically these cycles are going to happen 10, 12-year cycles. We're way overdue. Will it happen? Gosh, I don't know. It may not. You just about have to have a crystal ball. So many things have come into play since COVID, with government just interference in the natural cycle, natural order of things. Who would have ever thought we would have had a foreclosure moratorium for a year? I would have certainly never thought that. I mean, that's free commerce. That's how things work. That kept prices on an even keel. You have so many that go into foreclosure, property values, all of that comes into play. But when nobody can get foreclosed on for a year, and even now, with over 6 million people, the last numbers I got this week, really in default on mortgages right now. But FHA, government-backed loans are all doing loan modifications, partial claims. We see people that have 3 and 4 partial claims filed against their property. Those are second, third, fourth mortgages that are sitting out there. These people haven't made payments in years on these properties, but that's being kept quiet right now. Foreclosure rates are low. The economy is strong. Not so. People can't pay their mortgages, and they're not paying them. I got used to that during COVID. Real estate doesn't always go up in value. I believe there's going to be a correction. There has to be a correction. We don't know when and by how much. But be careful with that. There are markets in this country right now where real estate's been flat for years. They don't always go up in value. So if you're buying with the intent of reselling, you want to be sure on your profit margins. Higher days on market, and we see a lot of rehabbers that during COVID would pay full price for a house because they knew by the time they rehabbed it in 3 or 4 months, it would go up 10% in value. They're sitting on the MLS right now, 90, 120 days. They're adjusting prices now. I've seen prices adjusted by $1 because they don't have enough room to really make a price reduction and move this property. They're going to lose money. There was one that we were talking to a few weeks ago that lowered his price $50,000. I had a conversation with him, and I said, so you're taking a hit to get rid of this house. And he said, I've got to. My holding costs are, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'm just going to bite the bullet. So be careful, especially if you're rehabbing multiple properties. And the number 1 bad advice out there on social media for your real estate business, scale your business. I'm telling you, that's the buzzword now. Scale, scale, scale. I'm going to buy 20 houses a month for the rest of this year. You always need to scale your business. I'm going to tell you guys, I want you to watch this video, and I always do this wrong. It's going to pop up on one side here that I did on scaling. And I gave the example in there of a guy that Jody and I know that talked to us about his business. He wanted to scale his business. And we bought, I think it was 11 houses last year, and we made more gross and net profit than he did. I think he said he bought 50 or 60 houses last year, but he's got a lot of overhead. He's got, I think, 12 employees. He's got an outside office building. And he has to buy 2 or 3 houses a month just to pay his overhead. You don't want to put yourself in that position. Scaling is not the solution for everybody. Everybody out there doesn't want to build a real estate empire. Okay. Now, I get the ones that do. Okay. Maybe that's an ego thing. I don't know. Maybe it's just my age and my wisdom that comes from that tells me. But most of the people listening to this or watching this, most of you out there, just buying a few houses a year will be life-changing for you. Don't worry about scaling. Get your number. Where do you need to be? What is your freedom number? What is the number that you have to make every year to not have to go to a job? Worry about that number first. Okay. Get out of the job, because I'm going to tell you, if you're trying to build your real estate business right now while you're working, the time that you spend working on your job pays your bills, but it also keeps your business from growing. When you're able to match your job income, your lead flow, your deal flow is going to grow and go up tremendously because you're not tied down to that job anymore. Worry about 2 numbers. Worry about your freedom number, the number that gets you out of a job, and then worry about your lifestyle number. Okay. Your lifestyle number is where you need to be to do the things you want to do. If you want to travel constantly, okay, you're going to need a certain number. If you just want to be able to stay home, not work, send your kids to college, pay for your parents' old age, their nursing home or whatever it is that they need, then you're going to need a secondary number. But once you've achieved the freedom number and you don't have to go to work anymore, then you start working on that lifestyle number that gets you those things that you want to do. Okay, and the life that you want to have, the legacy that you want to leave, if that's important to you. Do you want to leave your kids well off, or do you want them to have to work for their stuff too? Either one of them's okay. So, but man, that is a list of the top 5 bad advice on social media or the internet. No, you don't have to be a real estate agent to do real estate investing. And in fact, I think it's easier if you aren't. Don't wait until prices or interest rates go down. Okay. The best time to buy real estate is right now. And if you use the techniques that we teach, you're not going to be paying those high prices or interest rate anyway. Remember that deals with no equity and no cash flow, they're not deals for you. Unless you're dealing in some high-end commercial stuff or doing some very advanced things. If you're talking about single family homes, which is what we teach and what we talk about, you want equity and or cash flow. You don't have to have both, but you definitely want one of them. You're not buying these properties for appreciation. You're trying to replace your job income and build a lifestyle. You need equity and or cash flow for sure. Real estate does not always go up in value, and scaling your business isn't necessary to make a ton of money. You can buy 1 house a month and be making $500,000 plus a year in the next 36 months. And I'm going to guess there's nobody listening to this or watching this that couldn't live a nice life on $500,000 a year. Right. Okay. So I hope that helps, guys. Listen, remember, if you're listening to our podcast, we'd love to have you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can do that at sub2tv.com. And don't forget to pick up my new book. That's at 12houseblueprint.com. That book will show you how to do exactly what we do every day, and the way that Jody and I travel for 3 or 4 months out of the year and just go wherever the heck we want, whenever we want to. We were just talking the other day about just taking off, just going on another couple of week vacation and just seeing some places and doing some stuff. And, real estate lets that happen. It wasn't that long ago, man. Actually, it was 25 years ago. It's a quarter of a century, but it seemed like just yesterday that I was working 60, 70 hours a week. I never saw my family. And I know a lot of people out there having to do that right now. There's a lot of people out there right now that have to worry about whether or not they're going to pay their mortgage payment or their rent next month. And I'm telling you, real estate in the next 12 months, sooner than that, but for sure in 12 months can change your life. It really can. So I hope that gets through to you today, that you're just a couple of conversations away from making your first deal and changing your life. So y'all get out there and do that. Listen, get out there, talk to sellers, and buy some houses.